Korean mafia boss Dong-woo woke at 3 a.m. to a hospital calling about his wife being in labor with twins, 8 months after their divorce, and 3 years after doctors told him he was permanently infertile from an injury that destroyed his ability to father children. And when he burst into the delivery room to find his ex-wife Zawadi screaming through contractions with a swollen belly, she whispered, "I'm sorry, I should have told you, but I thought you'd think I cheated because of what the doctors said," before pushing out 2 babies that had his exact face. The moment he held his impossible son and saw his own eyes staring back at him, Dong-woo realized the woman he'd failed so badly that she'd hidden an entire pregnancy from him had just given him the miracle he'd been told could never exist. What this reformed crime boss doesn't know, as he's promising to protect his family, as his brother is already calling to threaten the bastard babies, as his manipulative ex-employee is texting veiled threats about something happening to vulnerable mothers in hospitals, is that accepting these children means his enemies will use them as leverage. His family will try to prove Zawadi cheated to trap him, and the choice between reclaiming the wife he destroyed through his own weakness or losing his children forever starts right now when she wakes up and asks if he even believes they're his. The phone screamed at 3 in the morning, dragging Dong-woo Park from another nightmare about her. He grabbed it with one hand, his other instinctively reaching for the gun under his pillow. 8 months since the divorce, and he still woke up expecting to find Zawadi beside him. "Mr. Park?" A nervous female voice crackled through. "This is Detroit Memorial Hospital. Your wife is in labor." Dong-woo sat up fast, his heart hammering. "You have the wrong number. I don't have a wife." "Sir, the patient listed you as her emergency contact, Zawadi and Kunda. She's asking for you. The babies are coming early and there are complications." The room spun. Zawadi. Babies. None of this made sense. He'd been told by 3 different doctors that he could never father children. The injury from a fight 5 years ago had destroyed that dream forever. It was one of the reasons she'd left him, wasn't it? Among the 1,000 other ways he'd failed her. "Sir, are you coming?" Dong-woo was already pulling on his clothes, his mind racing through impossible math. 8 months since the divorce, which meant she'd gotten pregnant right before they split. But that was crazy. He was infertile. The doctors had been certain. He drove through Detroit's empty streets like a madman, running red lights, his hands shaking on the wheel. His phone buzzed with texts from his brother Sung-min, probably wondering where he'd disappeared to in the middle of the night. Sung-min, who'd celebrated when Zawadi finally left, who'd called her terrible names and said she was poison to their family's reputation. The Wax hospital loomed ahead, all harsh lights and white walls. Dong-woo abandoned his car at the entrance and ran inside, his expensive shoes squeaking on the polished floors. A nurse tried to stop him, but something in his face made her step back and point toward the elevators. 3rd floor. Room 317. He could hear screaming before he reached the door. "Please, somebody call him! I need Dong-woo!" Zawadi's voice ripped through him like a knife. She sounded terrified and in pain, and every protective instinct he'd tried to bury for 8 months roared back to life. He shoved the door open. The room was chaos. Nurses rushing around, machines beeping urgently. And there, in the middle of it all, was Zawadi. His Zawadi. Except she looked nothing like the strong woman who'd walked out of his life. Her dark skin was covered in sweat, her beautiful face twisted in agony, her body swollen with pregnancy. Their eyes met across the room, and time stopped. "You came," she whispered, and then another contraction hit her, and she screamed. "Sir, you need to step out," a doctor said, trying to guide him away. Dong-woo moved past her like she was made of air and grabbed Zawadi's hand. "I'm here. I'm right here. It hurts so much. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Tears streamed down her face. "I should have told you, but I thought you'd think I cheated because of what the doctors said. And I couldn't bear that and... Push, Ms. Nkunda. The first baby is coming now. Zawadi squeezed his hand hard enough to break bones and pushed. Dongwoo had faced guns, knives, men who wanted to kill him, but nothing prepared him for this moment. For watching the woman he loved suffer, for not being able to fix it, for the terror that something might go wrong. "One more push!" the doctor shouted, and then a baby's cry filled the room, thin and angry and absolutely perfect. "It's a boy!" The nurse held up a tiny, screaming creature covered in blood and vernix. Dongwoo stared at the baby's face and felt his entire world shift. The baby had his eyes, his nose, his mouth. There was no denying it. "The second one is coming. We need another push, Ms. Nkunda." Zawadi was exhausted, barely conscious, but she pushed again. Minutes that felt like hours passed. The second baby came quieter, smaller, and Dongwoo's heart stopped when she didn't cry right away. The medical team swarmed around her, working fast, and then finally, a weak little wail. "A girl," the doctor said, relief in her voice. "Both babies are here. Both alive." They took the twins to clean them up and check them over. Dongwoo stood frozen, his hand still holding Zawadi's, even though she'd passed out from exhaustion. His children. He had children. Two perfect miracles that shouldn't exist. "Mr. Park?" A doctor approached him, an older woman with kind eyes. "I'm Dr. Rodriguez. I need to explain something about your medical history." "How is this possible?" His voice came out rough. "3 doctors told me I was infertile. The injury you sustained did cause severe trauma and temporary infertility, but the key word is temporary. In rare cases, with time and the right circumstances, the body can heal itself. Your sperm count was likely very low, which made natural conception extremely difficult, but not impossible. These babies are nothing short of miraculous, but they are definitely yours. We can run DNA tests if you want confirmation, but Mr. Park?" She gestured toward where nurses were bringing the cleaned and swaddled babies back. "Just look at them." Dongwoo looked. The boy was bigger, already showing a fierce personality as he squirmed in his blankets. The girl was smaller, but her tiny fist was raised like she was ready to fight the world. Both had his features mixed with Zawadi's beauty. Both were absolutely his. A nurse placed the boy in his arms, and Dongwoo had never held something so precious and terrifying. The baby weighed nothing, fit perfectly against his chest, and stared up at him with dark, serious eyes that already seemed to judge him. "Hello, son," he whispered in Korean, his voice breaking. "I'm your father. I didn't know you existed until an hour ago, but I already know I'd kill anyone who tried to hurt you." The baby yawned, completely unimpressed. Movement from the bed made him turn. Zawadi was waking up, her eyes fluttering open. She looked at him, holding their son, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "You believe me?" she asked weakly. "You believe they're yours?" Dongwoo carefully sat on the edge of her bed, still cradling the baby. "How could I not? He has my bad attitude already." A tiny, exhausted laugh escaped her. "I was so scared, so alone. I wanted to call you 1,000 times, but I thought you'd hate me. Think I'd betrayed you with someone else." "Never." The word came out fierce. "I could never hate you, Zawadi, never." The nurse brought the baby girl over, placing her in Zawadi's arms. The little girl immediately settled, as if she knew she was home. Zawadi stared down at their daughter with such love that Dongwoo felt his chest crack open. "They need names," Zawadi whispered. "I waited, because I wanted you to help choose." Before Dongwoo could answer, his phone buzzed aggressively in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw 15 missed calls from Sung Min. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Where are you?" His brother's voice was sharp with suspicion. You disappeared in the middle of the night without telling anyone. That's dangerous and stupid. I'm at the hospital. Are you hurt? I'll send men immediately. I'm fine, more than fine. Dongwoo looked at his children, at Zawadi, and felt something like joy for the first time in 8 months. I'm a father, Sung-min. I have twins, a boy and a girl. The silence on the other end was deafening, then cold and cutting. That's impossible. You're infertile, which means your ex-wife is a cheating liar, just like I always said. Get away from her before she traps you with another man's bastards. The rage that filled Dongwoo was volcanic. Watch your mouth. These are my children, mine and Zawadi's. The doctors confirmed it's possible. Doctors can be paid off. DNA tests can be faked. You're being played by a woman who wants back into your money and your life. Come home now, and we'll handle this quietly. Go to hell. Dongwoo hung up and turned off his phone. Zawadi had heard enough to understand. Your family will never accept this. Accept us. I should have stayed away. I should have raised them alone rather than drag you back into this mess. Stop. He moved closer, still holding their son. I've spent 8 months in hell without you. 8 months wishing I could go back and fix everything I broke. Now I'm sitting here with you and our children, with 2 miracles I thought I'd never have. And you think I'm going to walk away because my brother is an idiot? Your whole family hates me, Dongwoo. Your mother sent me messages saying I wasn't good enough, that I was just a poor African girl using you. Your father threatened to have me deported, and Soo-yeon. Her voice caught on the name of the woman who'd pretended to be her friend while destroying her marriage. I know everything they did, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. He reached out and touched her face gently. But right now, in this moment, can we just be us? Can we just be the parents of these 2 perfect babies and figure out everything else later? Zawadi closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm so tired, Dongwoo. Tired of fighting. Tired of being strong alone. Tired of everything. Then let me be strong for you. For all of you. She opened her eyes and studied his face, searching for lies or false promises. Whatever she saw made her nod slowly. Okay, but just for now. Just until I get my strength back. Just for now, he agreed, knowing it was a lie they both needed. There was no just for now with them. There never had been. It was always everything or nothing, burning passion or destroying pain, forever or death. The boy started fussing in his arms, his tiny face scrunching up. Zawadi smiled despite her exhaustion. He's hungry already, determined, like his father. What should we name them? I thought Jiwon for the boy. It means wisdom and first son. And Misun for the girl. Beautiful and good. Korean names, so they'll always have a piece of you, even if... She stopped, not wanting to finish that sentence. Even if we don't make it. Even if this moment is all we get. Jiwon and Mi-sun, Dongwoo repeated, testing the names. They felt right. Perfect. Our son and daughter. A nurse returned to take the babies to the nursery so Zawadi could rest. Dongwoo reluctantly handed over Jiwon, watching as both twins were wheeled away. Alone now, the room felt too quiet, too full of unspoken words and broken promises. Where have you been living? He asked, needing to know everything. How did you survive the pregnancy alone? Columbus, Ohio. Far enough away to not accidentally run into you. I worked at a law office until 7 months. Then I cleaned houses under the table when I got too pregnant to hide it. A friend, McKenna, helped me. She's a nurse from Uganda. She was the only one who knew about the babies. The thought of Zawadi cleaning strangers' houses while pregnant with his children, struggling and afraid and alone, made him feel physically sick. I have money. So much money you could have lived comfortably forever. Why didn't you? Because I wanted nothing from you except love, and that was the one thing you stopped giving me. Her voice was quiet but honest. Your family made me feel like garbage, like I was stealing from you just by existing in your life. I couldn't take your money too. It would have proven them right. Dongwoo had no answer for that. She was right. He'd let his family poison their marriage, let his own insecurities about not being able to give her children push her away, let Soo-yeon manipulate situations until everything fell apart. He'd been a coward, and Zawadi had paid the price. I'm sorry, he said, the words completely inadequate. For everything. For not fighting harder for us. For believing the worst. For not protecting you from my family. For all of it. Sorry doesn't fix the past 8 months. It doesn't erase the nights I cried myself to sleep. Terrified I'd lose the babies. Terrified I'd have to raise them alone. Terrified you'd find out and think I'd betrayed you. Her eyes were heavy, exhaustion pulling her under. But it's a start, I guess. She fell asleep mid-sentence, her body finally giving in to the trauma of childbirth. Dongwoo sat in the chair beside her bed and watched her breathe, studying the face he'd dreamed about for 8 months. She'd lost weight everywhere except her belly, had shadows under her eyes, looked worn down in ways that made his heart ache. He'd done this to her. His weakness, his failure to stand up to his family, his inability to show her she mattered more than anything else in his world. The divorce had been finalized so fast because she'd asked for nothing, wanted nothing except freedom from the pain of being his wife. And now they had children together, 2 tiny humans who would tie them together forever, whether they could fix their broken marriage or not. His phone buzzed again. He'd turned it back on out of habit. A text from Sung Min. Father wants to see you. Now. Don't make this worse by ignoring family obligations. Another text, this one from Soo-yeon. I heard the news. Congratulations, I guess. But you know those babies can't really be yours. Don't let her fool you again. And finally, one from his youngest sister, Ji-woo. Is it true? Do you really have twins? I'm so happy for you, big brother. Don't let anyone tell you this isn't a blessing. At least someone in his family had a heart. Dawn broke through the hospital window, painting Zawadi in soft golden light. Dongwoo made a decision in that moment. He would fix this. Fix them. Fix everything he'd broken. His family would accept Zawadi and the twins, or they'd lose him completely. Soo-yeon would pay for her betrayal. And somehow, some way, he'd convince the woman he loved to give him another chance. But first, he needed to make sure they were safe, because in his world, family meant target. And now he had 3 people who could be used against him by enemies eager for revenge. His phone buzzed one more time, an unknown number, a text that made his blood run cold. Congratulations on the twins, Park. Such beautiful babies. It would be a shame if something happened to them. Dongwoo was on his feet instantly, his hand on his gun. Someone knew. Someone was already making threats. He looked at Zawadi sleeping peacefully, at the nursery where his children lay vulnerable and perfect, and felt the old darkness rise up inside him. Let them come. Let anyone try to touch his family. He'd burn the whole world down to keep them safe. The ballroom glittered with fake smiles and real diamonds. Dongwoo hated these charity events, but they were necessary for his cover. To the world, he was just another wealthy businessman with import connections. Nobody needed to know those imports. Sometimes included things that would get him arrested. He stood near the bar, nursing expensive whiskey and counting the minutes until he could leave. His brother had insisted he attend, something about maintaining appearances and building connections with legitimate society. Sung Min loved this stuff. Dongwoo found it exhausting. Excuse me. Oh no, I'm so sorry. He turned just as red wine splashed across his custom Italian suit. A young woman stood frozen in horror, an empty glass in her hand, and absolute panic on her beautiful face. I wasn't looking where I was going, and I just turned too fast, and oh my God, that suit probably costs more than my rent, and I'm so incredibly sorry. The words tumbled out in a rush, her accent marking her as someone who'd learned English as a second language, but spoke it perfectly. Dong-woo looked down at the spreading red stain, then back up at her. She was stunning. Dark brown skin that seemed to glow in the soft lighting, natural hair pulled back in an elegant style, warm brown eyes currently wide with mortification. She wore a simple black dress that was clearly borrowed or bought second-hand, but she carried herself with more grace than any of the wealthy women in their designer gowns. "It's just a suit," he said in English, keeping his voice calm. "Just a suit? That's Hermenegildo Zenya. I worked at a men's boutique last summer. I know how much those cost. Please let me pay for the dry cleaning, or the replacement. I'll set up a payment plan. I can do $50 a month for the next 10 years if needed." Despite himself, he smiled. "You worked at a men's boutique? I work everywhere. Law student by day, event server by night, weekend, tutor when I can get clients. The American dream, right?" She grabbed napkins from a passing server and started dabbing at his jacket, which only made it worse. "I'm making this catastrophically worse, aren't I?" "Catastrophically," he agreed, amused by her honesty. She stopped and looked up at him, really looked at him for the first time. Something passed between them, an awareness that made the air feel thicker. She stepped back quickly, professional distance reinstated. "I should get my manager. They'll want to file an incident report. You'll probably want to sue the catering company. That's reasonable. I totally understand." "I don't want to sue anyone." Dong-woo removed his ruined jacket and draped it over a chair. "What's your name?" "Zawadi. Zawadi Nkunda." "Zawadi," he repeated, liking how it felt in his mouth. "What does it mean?" "Gift. My mother said I was a gift after everything our family survived." A shadow crossed her face. There and gone. "And you are?" "Dong-woo Park, the import businessman. I saw your name on the donor list. You gave $500,000 to this education charity." She studied him with new interest. "That's generous. Education is important." It was a rehearsed line, something he said at these events without thinking. But looking at her, at the intelligence in her eyes, and the hunger to learn everything, he meant it for the first time. "It's everything," she corrected. "It's the difference between surviving and actually living. It's how people like me escape the past and build something new. People like you? Refugees, immigrants, people who came here with nothing but hope and stubbornness." She realized she was still holding the wine-stained napkins and looked around for somewhere to dispose of them. "I should let you get back to your evening. Again, I'm really sorry about your suit. Have dinner with me." The words came out before Dong-woo fully thought them through. He didn't do this, didn't ask women out randomly, didn't mix his personal life with anything that might expose his real business. But something about Zawadi made him want to break his own rules. She blinked, confused. "I'm working. I can't just leave. Tomorrow then. Or the day after. Whenever you're free. You want to have dinner with the woman who just ruined your very expensive suit? I want to have dinner with the woman interesting enough to work 3 jobs while studying law. The woman who knows men's fashion and defines education as the difference between surviving and living." He pulled out his phone. "Your number?" She hesitated, clearly torn between interest and self-preservation. "You don't know anything about me. That's why people have dinner, to learn about each other. I'm not rich. I can't go to fancy places. I know a good Ethiopian restaurant in Midtown. Very casual. Best food in Detroit. Her expression softened. You know Ethiopian food. I know enough to know I want to learn more from someone who can teach me. Zawadi bit her lip, considering. Around them, the party continued, wealthy people mingling and making deals. She was supposed to be invisible, just another server in black and white. But Dongwoo was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Okay, she said finally, pulling out her own phone. But if this is some kind of weird rich guy thing where you collect charity cases, I'm out immediately. Not a charity case, a dinner. Between two people who might enjoy each other's company. They exchanged numbers. Her fingers brushed his when she took his phone to enter her contact information, and that spark of awareness flared again. She felt it too, he could tell by the way her breath caught. I should get back to work before I'm fired, she said, stepping away. Zawadi? She turned back. Thank you for ruining my suit. Best thing that's happened to me in years. Her smile transformed her face, bright and genuine and absolutely beautiful. You're very strange, Dongwoo Park. He watched her disappear into the crowd, already planning their dinner. His phone buzzed with a text from Sung Min. Stop flirting with the help and network with the real guests. That's why you're here. Dongwoo deleted the message without responding. 3 days later, he picked her up from her tiny apartment in a neighborhood his security team called risky. She came out wearing jeans and a colorful African print top, her hair loose and curly, looking nothing like the nervous server from the charity event. You actually showed up, she said, sliding into his car. I half thought you'd forget or realize this was a weird impulse. I don't forget things that matter. The restaurant was small and family-owned, filled with the smell of spices and injera bread. They sat at a corner table, and Zawadi ordered for both of them in rapid Amharic, making the owner laugh and pat her shoulder like she was family. You speak Amharic? Dongwoo asked, and French and Kinyarwanda and English and a bit of Swahili. You learn languages when you're a refugee bouncing between countries trying to find somewhere safe. She tore off a piece of injera and used it to scoop up spicy lentils. Your turn. Tell me about you. What do you want to know? Everything. But let's start with why a successful import businessman is having dinner with a broke law student in a restaurant that definitely isn't on the fancy Detroit dining guide. Dongwoo chose his words carefully. I spend most of my time pretending to be someone I'm not, doing things that don't matter, with people who bore me. This feels real. You feel real. That's either really honest or a very smooth line. Can it be both? She laughed, and the sound did something to his chest. They talked for 3 hours, long after they'd finished eating. She told him about surviving the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide as a child, about refugee camps, and eventually making it to America with an aunt, about working impossible hours to pay for school because she'd promised her mother, who hadn't survived, that she'd become someone important. He told her half-truths about his business, about the pressure of family expectations, about being the second son who always had to prove himself. He left out the violence, the illegal operations, the blood on his hands. Those truths could come later, if there was a later. When he dropped her off at midnight, she lingered by his car door. This was nice, she said. Unexpected, but nice. Can I see you again? You're persistent. Only about things worth fighting for. She considered him in the darkness, streetlights casting shadows across her face. One more date. But somewhere I choose this time. If you survive my world, maybe you're worth keeping around. Her world turned out to be a community center in her neighborhood, where she tutored refugee kids twice a week. Dongwoo showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, feeling more out of place than he ever had in a business meeting. But Zawadi's face when she saw him made it worth it. He spent 3 hours helping kids with math homework, playing basketball with teenagers, and listening to stories from families who'd survived horrors he couldn't imagine. Zawadi moved through the center like light itself, knowing everyone's name, speaking half a dozen languages, making people feel seen and valued. "You're good at this," he said as they cleaned up afterward. "At what?" "Making people feel like they matter, like they're worth something." She stopped, holding a stack of workbooks. "Everyone is worth something, Dongwoo. The world just makes some of us fight harder to prove it." On their third date, he took her to a Korean restaurant and taught her to make bulgogi. On their fourth, she dragged him to an African hair braiding shop and made him sit for 2 hours while her friend did box braids, laughing at his complaints. On their fifth date, he kissed her in his car outside her apartment and felt the ground shift under his feet. "This is crazy," she whispered against his mouth. "I barely know you." "Then let's fix that." He pulled back enough to look at her. "Spend the weekend with me. No distractions, no interruptions, just us." "That's moving really fast." "Life's too short to move slow." She bit her lip, considering. "I have studying to do. Bring your books. And laundry. I have a washing machine. And I'm supposed to tutor on Saturday. We'll be back in time." She studied his face, looking for red flags or reasons to say no. "Where would we go?" "My place. It's outside the city, quiet, private. You can leave whenever you want." "But Zawadi?" He tucked a curl behind her ear. "I really want you to stay." The heat in his voice made her shiver. She'd been alone for so long, focused only on survival and success. The idea of letting someone in, of being vulnerable, terrified her. But something about Dongwoo felt right in ways she couldn't explain. "Okay," she whispered. "One weekend?" His house wasn't what she expected. It was large, but not ostentatious, modern but warm, with huge windows overlooking woods. She explored while he made dinner, noting the expensive security system, the lack of personal photos, the way everything felt slightly staged, like a showroom. "You don't really live here, do you?" she asked over pasta. "What makes you say that?" "No pictures, no mess, no personality. This is where you sleep sometimes, not where you live." She was too observant. It was going to be a problem. "I travel a lot for work, haven't really made it home yet." After dinner, they sat on his couch with wine and talked until the conversation died into something heavier. The attraction between them had been building for weeks, and now, alone in his house with no interruptions, it became impossible to ignore. "I should probably go to bed," Zawadi said, not moving. "You said there was a guest room?" "Down the hall." Dongwoo didn't move either. "But you're welcome to stay here." "That's probably a bad idea." "Probably." Neither of them moved. The air felt electric, charged with possibility. Zawadi set down her wine glass with shaking hands. "I haven't done this in a long time," she admitted. "Haven't let anyone close. Haven't trusted anyone enough. We don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "That's the problem. I'm ready. Too ready. And that scares me." Dongwoo reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face gently. "You scare me too. The way I feel about you after only a few weeks scares the hell out of me." "How do you feel?" "Like I've been waiting my whole life and didn't know it until I met you." She kissed him first, closing the distance between them with sudden certainty. The kiss started soft, but quickly turned desperate. Weeks of tension and attraction and careful restraint burned away in seconds. His hand slid into her hair, hers gripped his shirt, and they kissed like they were drowning, and each other was air. "Zawadi," he breathed against her mouth. "Tell me to stop if you want to stop. Don't stop. Please don't stop." They barely made it to his bedroom. Clothes fell away between kisses. Hands explored skin that had been hidden, and when they finally came together, it felt like coming home. She was fire in his arms, passionate and demanding and giving. He was gentle and fierce at once, making her feel cherished and desired and absolutely alive. Afterward, tangled in his sheets with her head on his chest, Zawadi traced patterns on his skin. "This changes things," she whispered. "Good. Dongwoo, I need you to be honest with me. About everything. About who you really are and what you really do." She propped herself up to look at him. "Because I'm falling for you way too fast, and I can't afford to be stupid about this." He should have told her then, should have confessed everything. But looking at her face soft with trust and new love, he couldn't destroy it yet. "I'm just a man who can't believe his luck," he said instead. "A man who wants to spend every possible moment with the most incredible woman he's ever met." It wasn't a lie, exactly, but it wasn't the truth either, and that half-truth would eventually destroy them both. 6 months of dating flew by in a blur of stolen nights and passionate mornings. Zawadi practically lived at Dongwoo's house now, keeping clothes in his closet and her textbooks scattered across his coffee table. She studied while he worked, and when he came home, they'd cook together and talk and make love like the world might end tomorrow. But cracks were starting to show. She noticed the late-night phone calls he wouldn't explain, the way armed men sometimes waited outside his office building, how people looked at him with fear disguised as respect, the mysterious business trips that came up suddenly and couldn't be discussed. "You're involved in something illegal," she said one night, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Dongwoo looked up from his laptop. "What makes you say that?" "I'm not stupid. Law students learn to recognize patterns, and you have all the patterns of organized crime. The security, the secretive meetings, the way you always pay cash, how you have connections that don't make sense for a simple import businessman." She sat across from him. "Tell me I'm wrong." He could have lied, should have lied, but she deserved better. "You're not wrong." The confirmation hit her like a physical blow. "What are you involved in?" "My family runs an organization. Import, export, protection services, information brokering. Some of it's legal. A lot of it isn't." He closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "I was born into it. My father runs things. My brother is his heir. And I handle operations they don't want traced back to them." "So you're what? Korean Mafia?" "That's not a term we use, but essentially, yes." Zawadi stood up and walked to the window, her back to him. "You lied to me." "I never lied. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." She spun around, angry now. "I told you everything about me. Every trauma, every fear, every dream. And you let me fall in love with you while hiding who you really are. I'm still the same man you fell in love with." "No, you're not. That man was safe. This man has people who want to hurt him, which means they can hurt me too." Her voice broke. "I survived a genocide, Dongwoo. I came to this country to be safe, to build a clean life away from violence and death. And now I find out I'm dating someone who lives in that world by choice." Dongwoo stood and moved toward her, but she held up a hand to stop him. "Don't. I need to think." She left that night, going back to her tiny apartment she'd kept just in case. For 3 days, she didn't answer his calls or texts. Dongwoo was going insane, resisting the urge to show up at her door or use his connections to track her every move. On the 4th day, she finally texted, "Meet me at the Ethiopian restaurant. 7 p.m. He arrived early and paced until she showed up looking tired and sad. They ordered food neither of them touched. "I talked to my aunt in Rwanda," Zawadi said quietly. "Told her about you, about what you do. She said I should run as far away as possible, that men like you only bring pain." Dongwoo's heart sank. And what do you think? I think she's probably right. I think the smart choice is to walk away now before I'm in too deep. She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. But I also think it's already too late. I'm already in too deep. I love you, and I don't know how to stop. Then don't stop. Let me protect you. Let me. Someone followed me yesterday. The world stopped. What? A black car. It tailed me from class to my apartment. When I went inside, it parked across the street and waited. I called the police, but it left before they arrived. Her hands shook around her water glass. That's your world, isn't it? People following, threatening, using whoever is close to you as leverage. Dongwoo was already pulling out his phone, texting his head of security. This was his worst nightmare. Someone had noticed Zawadi, marked her as important to him, and now she was in danger. Pack your things. You're moving in with me permanently where I can protect you. Running to you for protection is exactly how I lose my independence, my safety, everything I've built. And staying alone in an apartment someone already tracked is how you get hurt or killed. He forced himself to calm down. Zawadi, please. Let me fix this. Let me keep you safe. That night, men Dongwoo trusted moved Zawadi into his house with a full security detail. She was furious and terrified and exhausted. While she slept, he made phone calls and called in favors. By morning, he knew exactly who'd sent the tale. A rival organization testing his weaknesses. They'd been watching him for months, waiting for an opportunity, and his relationship with Zawadi had given them exactly what they needed. I'm going to handle this, he told her over breakfast, but I need you to stay here with security until it's resolved. How are you going to handle it? The look on his face told her everything. Violence, blood, things she didn't want to know the details of. This is what my aunt warned me about, she whispered. This is who you are when you're not being gentle with me. Yes, this is who I am. He knelt in front of her chair. I'm not a good man, Zawadi. I've done terrible things. But I swear on my life that I will never let those things touch you. I will keep you safe, no matter what it costs me. She touched his face gently. What if keeping me safe means letting me go? Then I'll let you go, if that's what you want. It's not what I want, she said, tears streaming down her face. But I don't know if what I want is possible. Dongwoo left that afternoon with 6 men and came back 12 hours later, covered in someone else's blood. Zawadi helped him clean up without asking questions. When they finally crawled into bed at dawn, she held him tight. Is it over? She asked. For now. Will there always be a for now? Will we ever be completely safe? He didn't answer because they both knew the truth. As long as he was in this life, there would always be threats, always danger, always blood. 2 weeks later, he asked her to marry him. They were cooking dinner together, something simple and domestic. Zawadi was chopping vegetables while he seasoned meat, and the normalcy of it struck him. This is what he wanted, forever. Every night, her laughter in his kitchen, her clothes in his closet, her love making his dark world bearable. Marry me. She looked up from the cutting board. What? Marry me. I know it's crazy and fast and complicated, but I don't care. I want you to be my wife. I want to protect you legally and officially. I want to spend my life making you happy. He abandoned the stove and pulled a ring from his pocket. Not flashy or expensive looking, just a simple band with a single perfect stone. I had this made for you. It's not much, but it's perfect. She stared at the ring with wide eyes. But Dongwoo, we've only been together 6 months. And everything is so complicated with your family and the danger, and I don't have time for slow and careful. In my world, you take what matters and you hold on tight before it's gone. He took her hand. You matter. You're everything that matters. So marry me. Let me call you my wife. Let me promise you forever. Your family will never approve. I don't care. They'll make my life hell. I'll protect you from them too." She looked at the ring, then at him, then back at the ring. "This is insane. Completely insane. We barely know each other's families. We haven't even said I love you enough times. I love you. I'll say it every day for the rest of our lives." Zawadi laughed through her tears. "You're ridiculous. Is that a yes?" "It's a probably stupid, but I don't care yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her like she was oxygen. They didn't finish cooking dinner. They made love right there in the kitchen, desperate and passionate, and full of promises they hoped they could keep. They decided to marry quickly and quietly, before his family could interfere. Just them, 2 friends as witnesses, and a justice of the peace in Ann Arbor who didn't ask questions. Zawadi wore a simple white dress she found at a thrift store. Dongwoo wore a suit and looked at her like she was wearing a designer gown. "I promise to love you through everything," he said during their vows. "Through danger and peace, through struggle and success, through all my family's hatred and the whole world's judgment. You are mine now, and I don't break what's mine. I promise to be your safe place," she said, voice shaking with emotion. "To be the light in your darkness, to fight beside you instead of running from you, to love you even when it's hard. You're my home now, and I don't abandon home." They kissed as husband and wife, and for that perfect moment, everything else disappeared. But reality came crashing back fast. That night, Dongwoo got a call from his sister Jiwoo, frantic and scared. "Sung-min knows. I don't know how, but he knows you got married. He's furious. He's on his way to your house with father and several men. They're talking about annulment, about making her disappear, about..." Her voice broke. "Please be careful. Please don't let them hurt her." Dongwoo looked at Zawadi, his brand new wife, sleeping peacefully in their bed. He'd promised to protect her. Time to prove it. When his family arrived, he met them outside with his own security, making it clear they weren't welcome in his home. "You married her without permission?" His father's voice was cold with rage. "Without even informing the family? Married some African refugee nobody like she's worthy of our name? Watch your mouth. That's my wife you're talking about." Sung-min stepped forward, his expression disgusted. "She's a nobody, a poor student using you for money and status, and you fell for it like a fool. She doesn't want my money. She wanted me, something you'll never understand, because people only tolerate you out of fear." "Enough," their father's shout echoed through the night. "You will annul this marriage immediately. If you don't, I'll have her deported. I'll destroy her student visa, her future, everything she's built here. Try it, and I walk away from this family forever. Try it, and I take half your operations with me, because I know where every body is buried, every dirty secret, every illegal deal. Try it, and I burn this whole organization to the ground." The threat hung in the air, heavy and real. His father studied him with cold calculation. "You'd throw away everything for some girl? She's my wife. And yes, I'd throw away everything. You taught me family is everything, father. Well, she's my family now." His father turned and walked away without another word. But Sung-min lingered, his expression promising future retaliation. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "She'll never be accepted, never be safe. And when she leaves you, don't come crying to family." Inside, Zawadi stood by the window, having heard everything. When Dongwoo came in, she was trembling. "This is only the beginning, isn't it?" she whispered. "They're going to make our lives impossible." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. Let them try. I didn't fight this hard to win you, just to let anyone take you away. But deep down, they both knew the war was just starting. And wars always have casualties. The first year of marriage was beautiful and brutal in equal measure. Dongwoo and Zawadi created a world just for them inside his house, full of laughter and passion and small domestic joys. But outside those walls, everything was falling apart. His mother, Haiwan, refused to meet Zawadi, sending messages through Jiwoo about what a disappointment Dongwoo had become. She called Zawadi terrible names, said she was a gold digger who'd trapped her son with feminine manipulation. When Zawadi tried to reach out with a respectful letter introducing herself, Haiwan sent it back unopened. His father, Jun-sik, went colder, cutting Dongwoo out of major family decisions and giving important assignments to Sungmin instead. The message was clear: fix this mistake or become irrelevant. But worst was Sungmin, who'd made destroying their marriage his personal mission. He spread rumors through their organization that Zawadi was using Dongwoo, that she was actually involved with other men, that she'd gotten pregnant and aborted his brother's baby to trap him. None of it was true, but in their world, reputation was everything. People are looking at me differently, Zawadi said one night after attending a family business dinner she hadn't been invited to but crashed anyway. Like I'm dirty, like I don't belong. They're jealous and small-minded. No, they're your family, and they hate me. Dongwoo pulled her close, hating how defeated she sounded. We just need time. They'll see how incredible you are eventually. But time only made things worse. Su-yeon, his second in command, started showing up more frequently. She'd worked for Dongwoo for 3 years, always professional, always efficient. What he hadn't known was that she'd been in love with him the entire time, waiting for the right moment to make her move. Your wife called again, Su-yeon said one afternoon at the office, her tone making the word wife sound like an insult. She wants to know when you'll be home for dinner. I'll call her back. You know, you never had to check in before her. Never had someone trying to control your schedule or limit your work. She perched on his desk, too close to be appropriate. Don't you miss your freedom? I don't feel controlled. I feel loved. There's a difference. Su-yeon's smile turned sharp. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like she's made you weak. You used to be feared and respected. Now people whisper about how you let some refugee girl change you. Get out of my office. She left, but the poison had been planted, and she was just getting started. Su-yeon began a careful campaign of manipulation. She befriended Zawadi, taking her to lunch and pretending to be an ally in a hostile world. She offered advice about navigating the family politics and managing Dongwoo's mood swings. She became Zawadi's only friend in this new, dangerous life, all while slowly destroying them from the inside. Dongwoo's been so stressed lately, Su-yeon said over coffee. He stays late at the office almost every night. I worry about him. I know, he comes home exhausted. Men like him need someone who understands their work, someone who can handle the pressure without adding to it. She squeezed Zawadi's hand sympathetically. Not that you're adding pressure. I just mean, it must be hard being married to someone whose world you don't fully understand. Little comments like that, repeated over months, added up. Zawadi started doubting herself, wondering if she was truly the right partner for Dongwoo or just someone he'd gotten swept up in emotionally. Then came the medical diagnosis that broke everything. Dongwoo had been feeling off for weeks, but ignored it. Finally, after Zawadi forced him to see a doctor, he went for tests. The results came back devastating. Complications from an old injury had left him infertile, permanently. The doctor showed him scans and used words like severe trauma and no viable sperm production. He sat in the parking lot for an hour, unable to drive home, unable to face Zawadi with this news. In their culture, in his family's world, a man's worth was tied to his ability to produce heirs, and he was broken. When he finally came home, Zawadi took one look at his face and knew something was catastrophically wrong. "The doctors say I can't have children." His voice came out flat, emotionless. "Ever." She went to him immediately, wrapping her arms around him. "That doesn't matter. We have each other." "It matters. You wanted kids someday. You told me that on our third date. I want you more than I want kids. We can adopt. We can foster. There are a million ways to build a family." But he couldn't hear her. All he heard was his brother's voice, saying he was defective, his father's disappointment, his mother's judgment. In his mind, he'd failed as a husband before truly beginning. He started pulling away emotionally, still loving her, still wanting her physically, but building walls around the parts of himself that hurt too much to expose. He threw himself into work, taking dangerous assignments and staying away from home for days at a time. Zawadi tried everything to reach him. She cooked his favorite meals. She waited up for him night after night. She tried to initiate conversations about his feelings, but he'd gone somewhere inside himself she couldn't follow. "Talk to me," she begged one night after he'd come home at 3 a.m. smelling like whiskey and smoke. "Please, Dongwoo, you're disappearing and I don't know how to bring you back." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're destroying yourself and us and everything we built because you can't have biological children. But I don't care about that. I care about you. You should care. You should leave me and find someone whole. Someone who can give you everything you deserve. Don't you dare tell me what I should want." She was crying now, frustrated and scared. "I chose you. I married you. And I'm not going anywhere just because things got hard." But the damage was done. He couldn't see himself as worthy anymore, and that belief poisoned everything. Soo-yeon saw her opportunity and struck. She started staying late at the office when Dongwoo did, bringing him food and listening to his problems. She never judged, never pushed, just offered silent support that felt easier than Zawadi's emotional demands. She dressed more carefully around him, touched his arm more often, laughed at his jokes, and made him feel like the powerful, capable man he'd been before marriage complicated everything. "You seem happier lately," Zawadi noticed one evening when he actually came home for dinner. "Work's going well. Is Soo-yeon still helping with the new contracts?" Something in his expression shifted. "Yes. She's very efficient." That night, Zawadi couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong, an instinct she couldn't name. She grabbed her phone and texted Soo-yeon. "Thank you for being such a good friend. I don't know what I'd do without you supporting Dongwoo when I can't be there." The response came quickly. "He needs someone who understands his world. I'm happy to be that person." The phrasing made Zawadi's blood run cold. She read it over and over, searching for the threat hidden in the kindness. Was she being paranoid? Or was her only friend in this country actually her enemy? A week later, she got her answer. Dongwoo had forgotten his phone at home. It kept buzzing with work messages, so Zawadi brought it to his office to save him the trouble of coming back. She should have called first, should have announced herself at the door. Instead, she walked in and found Soo-yeon kissing her husband. Time stopped. Zawadi's brain couldn't process what her eyes were seeing. Soo-yeon's hands were in Dongwoo's hair, her body pressed against his hands on her waist. He shoved Soo-yeon away hard the second he saw Zawadi in the doorway. "It's not what it looks like." But the damage was instant and total. Everything shattered in that moment. Every doubt, every insecurity, every lonely night waiting for him to come home crashed over Zawadi like a wave. "How long?" Her voice came out steady despite the screaming inside her head. "Zawadi, she kissed me." I was about to push her away. Soo-yeon smoothed her dress with a small smile. I'll give you 2 privacy. She walked past Zawadi, pausing to whisper, He's too good for you. He always was. Zawadi stood frozen, staring at the man she'd given up everything for. The man she'd married despite his dangerous world, despite his family's hatred, despite every logical reason to run. The man who'd promised forever, but apparently had been lying. I didn't want that kiss, Dongwoo said desperately. You have to believe me. She's been inappropriate lately, but I never encouraged it, never wanted it. But you kept her around, kept staying late with her, kept confiding in her instead of me. Because you kept pushing, kept trying to talk about feelings and fix things when I just needed space to deal with everything. So, you emotionally cheated with your coworker instead of working on our marriage? I didn't cheat. Nothing happened. Something just happened, Dongwoo. I saw it with my own eyes. She was shaking now, adrenaline and heartbreak making her feel sick. Was she telling the truth? Are you too good for me? Did you finally realize your family was right? That I'm just some poor refugee who doesn't belong in your world? Never. Zawadi, never. He moved toward her, but she stepped back. Don't touch me. The words hit him like a physical blow. She'd never refused his touch before. Even during their worst fights, they'd always found their way back to each other physically. But something in her eyes had gone dark and distant. I need time to think, she said quietly. Don't come home tonight. Stay at a hotel or go to your family's house. I don't care. Just give me space. She left his office and his building and drove home in a daze. When she got there, she packed a bag mechanically, moving through the house they'd built together like a ghost. Evidence of their love was everywhere. Photos from their secret wedding, her law books on his shelves, his Korean cookbooks next to her African spice collection. A year ago, she'd been so happy, so certain. Now she couldn't breathe in this house without feeling like the walls were closing in. She called a lawyer the next morning, filed for divorce the day after that, moved into a tiny apartment in Columbus within a week. It happened so fast that Dongwoo barely had time to process what was happening before it was done. He showed up at her new apartment, frantic and desperate. Don't do this. Please, Zawadi, let me fix this. Let me prove to you that nothing happened with Soo-yeon. I saw something happen. A kiss I didn't want. A kiss I immediately stopped. But you created the situation where it could happen. You pulled away from me. You chose to confide in her instead of working on us. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, like our marriage was a burden you regretted. She wrapped her arms around herself. I can't live like that, Dongwoo. Always wondering if I'm good enough, always competing with your work and your family and women who understand your world better than I ever will. You're giving up. After everything we survived, you're just giving up. No, I'm choosing myself for the first time in a year. I'm choosing peace over constant battle. I'm choosing to leave before I lose myself completely. The divorce was finalized quickly. She asked for nothing, wanted nothing except to be free. No money, no alimony, no property division. Just a clean break and permission to disappear. What neither of them knew was that their last night together before she moved out, a desperate and tearful goodbye where anger turned to passion and they made love like they were dying, had created an impossible miracle. 8 months later, Zawadi would give birth to twins that shouldn't exist. But first, both of them had to survive 8 months of separate hell. Before we continue to the next chapter, if you're enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and hit that like button if you're rooting for Dongwoo and Zawadi to find their way back to each other. Columbus, Ohio was nothing like Detroit. Smaller, quieter, lonelier. Zawadi's new apartment was a studio in a neighborhood that wasn't quite safe, but was all she could afford on a student budget. She'd left behind everything from her marriage, except clothes and books, wanting no reminders of what she'd lost. The first month after the divorce was survival mode. She finished her semester through sheer willpower, working 2 jobs to pay rent and tuition. At night, she cried into her pillow, mourning the loss of the man she loved and the future they'd planned together. She didn't know yet that part of him was growing inside her. In Detroit, Dong-woo fell apart slowly, and then all at once. He fired Soo-yeon the day after Zawadi left, but the damage was irreversible. His family was satisfied, thinking the problem had solved itself. Only Ji-woo understood what her brother had lost. "You're killing yourself," she said, finding him in his office at 4 a.m., surrounded by empty bottles. "This isn't grieving, this is destruction. She's gone. What does it matter? It matters because you're still alive, even if you wish you weren't." Ji-woo took the bottle from his hand. "And because she left for a reason, you failed her, big brother. You let everyone poison your marriage instead of protecting it. I know. Knowing isn't enough. You have to be better. Do better." But how could he be better when the only person who made him want to be better was gone? He threw himself into the family business with reckless intensity, taking assignments that should have gotten him killed. He stopped caring about safety, about consequences, about tomorrow. His father noticed and approved, thinking Dong-woo had finally come to his senses and prioritized family over feelings. Only Sung-min saw the truth. His brother was a dead man walking, just waiting for the bullet. Meanwhile, in Columbus, Zawadi started feeling sick. It began as morning nausea that she blamed on stress, then exhaustion so profound she could barely get out of bed. Her breasts were tender, her appetite weird, her emotions all over the place. She ignored it for weeks, too busy and too heartbroken to connect the obvious dots. It was her coworker at the coffee shop who finally said it. "Girl, you might want to take a pregnancy test. You've been running to the bathroom every morning for 2 weeks." Zawadi laughed it off. "I can't be pregnant. My ex-husband is infertile." The doctors were really clear about that. But the seed of doubt was planted. That night, she bought 3 different tests from 3 different stores, just to be sure. She lined them up on her bathroom counter and peed on each one with shaking hands. All 3 came back positive within seconds. She stared at those little plus signs and felt her entire world shift. Pregnant. She was pregnant. But that was impossible. The doctors had said Dong-woo couldn't father children. Multiple specialists had confirmed it. So either the tests were wrong, or the doctors had been wrong, or the alternative was too horrible to consider. That she'd somehow gotten pregnant by someone else, even though she'd been faithful to Dong-woo from their first date until the day she left. The timeline didn't even make sense for that theory. But would he believe her? Would anyone? She made an appointment with a clinic and waited in agony for a week. The doctor confirmed it. She was definitely pregnant. About 9 weeks along, which matched perfectly with that last desperate night with Dong-woo before she moved out. "Your hormone levels indicate a strong pregnancy," the doctor said, studying her blood work. "Actually, these numbers suggest you might be carrying multiples. We'll need an ultrasound to confirm." Twins. The ultrasound showed 2 tiny heartbeats, 2 little blobs that would become her children. Their children. The miracle that shouldn't be possible. Zawadi sat in her car afterward and made a decision. She wouldn't tell Dong-woo. He'd either think she was lying, that she'd cheated and was trying to trap him with another man's babies. Or he'd believe her and feel obligated to come back, to try to make things work for the sake of children neither of them had planned for. Either way, it would be a disaster. She would do this alone. somehow, but doing it alone meant working herself nearly to death. She kept her 2 jobs until her pregnancy became obvious at 6 months, then lost both because employers don't like hiring obviously pregnant women for physical work. She applied for assistance, for help, for anything that might keep her afloat. It was at a community clinic for low-income mothers that she met Makena, a Ugandan nurse with warm eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "You're carrying twins and working this hard," Makena scolded after checking Zawadi's blood pressure. "Are you trying to kill yourself and your babies?" "I'm trying to survive." "Where's the father?" "Not in the picture." Makena studied her for a long moment. "That's a lie. But it's your lie to tell. Listen, I have a spare room in my apartment. It's not fancy, but it's yours if you need it. No pregnant woman should be this stressed and alone." Zawadi cried right there in the clinic. She'd been holding everything together so tightly, refusing to admit how scared and overwhelmed she was. But Makena's kindness broke through her defenses. She moved into Makena's apartment that week. It was cramped and loud because Makena had 3 kids of her own, but it was safe and warm and full of life. For the first time in months, Zawadi felt like she could breathe. "You're going to tell me about him eventually," Makena said one night while they folded laundry together. "About the father who's not in the picture. It's complicated. Love always is. But those babies deserve to know where they came from." In Detroit, Dong-woo was spiraling. Rumors reached him through his network that Zawadi was pregnant. The information came from a private investigator Sung-min had hired to keep tabs on her, making sure she wasn't planning to sue the family or cause problems. "Your ex-wife is pregnant," Sung-min announced at a family dinner with obvious satisfaction. "Congratulations, brother. You're going to be a stepfather to some other man's bastards." Dong-woo's hand tightened around his fork until it bent. "What are you talking about?" "She's 6 months pregnant, living in Columbus with some nurse and her kids, working under the table to support herself because she's too proud to ask for help." Sung-min's smile was cruel. "I guess she moved on faster than we thought." The words detonated in Dong-woo's chest. Zawadi was pregnant, with someone else's child. She'd left him and immediately found another man, gotten pregnant, built a whole new life without him. The pain was so intense, he thought he might actually die from it. "You're lying," he managed to say. "Why would I lie? Here, I have photos." Sung-min pulled out his phone and showed images of Zawadi, her belly round and unmistakable, walking into a clinic. "Face it, brother. She used you, divorced you, and moved on. She was never the saint you thought she was." Dong-woo left the dinner table and drove to the warehouse where they kept people who needed convincing. He beat 3 men bloody that night, working out his rage and heartbreak on people who probably deserved it anyway. His knuckles were raw and bleeding by the time Ji-woo found him. "Stop. Dong-woo, stop." She pulled him off the last man. "You're going to kill someone." "Good." She saw the photos on his phone, the evidence of Zawadi's pregnancy. "Oh no, Sung-min told you." "Why would you keep this from me? Why would everyone keep this from me?" "Because I wasn't sure it was real. Because the timeline doesn't make sense." Ji-woo grabbed his shoulders. "Listen to me. If she's 6 months pregnant, that means she got pregnant around the time you two separated, before she left Detroit. Which means she was already cheating on me when we were still married. Or those babies are yours." The words hung in the air between them. Impossible words. Hopeful words. Devastating words. "I can't have children. 3 doctors confirmed it." Doctors are wrong sometimes. Medicine isn't perfect. What if this is a miracle? Or what if she's a liar who's trying to trap me? Do you really believe that? After everything, do you really think Zawadi would do that? He didn't know what to believe anymore. His world had become a nightmare where nothing made sense, and everyone he loved either left him or betrayed him. In Columbus, Zawadi's pregnancy progressed with complications. Her blood pressure was too high, the twins were growing at different rates, and the doctors started talking about bed rest and possible early delivery. She was terrified and exhausted, and so alone despite McKenna's help. At night, she'd lie awake and think about calling Dongwoo, telling him the truth. But every time she reached for her phone, she remembered the look on his face when he'd said the doctors confirmed he was infertile. He'd been so broken by that news, so convinced he'd failed as a man. How could she call him now and say, "Actually, surprise, you're going to be a father of twins"? He'd never believe her. He'd think the worst. So she said nothing and suffered alone. She went into early labor at 32 weeks, scared and unprepared. McKenna drove her to the hospital while Zawadi cried and prayed in Kinyarwanda, begging God or fate or whoever was listening to let her babies survive. The doctors managed to stop the labor, buying them a few more weeks, but they told her the twins would come early, ready or not. She needed to make preparations, get her affairs in order, and most importantly, list an emergency contact. The father, the social worker said gently, even if he's not involved, we need his information in case something goes wrong. Zawadi stared at the form. She could leave it blank, could write unknown or not available. But looking at the ultrasound images of her two perfect babies, she couldn't lie. They deserved better than that. With shaking hands, she wrote Dongwoo's name and number. If something went wrong, if she didn't survive this, someone needed to tell him. Someone needed to make sure he knew these babies were his, even if he never believed it. Back in Detroit, Soo-yeon was plotting her revenge. Dongwoo had fired her, humiliated her, and chosen his pathetic ex-wife over her. She'd spent 3 years being the perfect employee, the perfect support, waiting for him to notice her. And when he'd finally been vulnerable enough to potentially see her as more than a coworker, that African woman had ruined everything. She'd kissed him. He'd been about to kiss her back. She was sure of it. But then Zawadi had shown up and destroyed the moment. And now, Dongwoo was lost, drowning in heartbreak, over a woman who'd clearly never loved him if she could move on and get pregnant so fast. Soo-yeon knew something no one else did. She'd been the one to tell Sung-min about Zawadi's pregnancy. She'd hired the investigator, taken the photos, and made sure the information reached Dongwoo in the most painful way possible. But that wasn't enough. She wanted Zawadi to suffer the way she was suffering. She wanted that woman to lose everything, just like Soo-yeon had lost her chance with the only man she'd ever loved. She made a phone call to a man she'd met through work, someone dangerous who owed her a favor. "I need information on someone," she said. "A woman in Columbus, Ohio. I want to know everything about her, where she lives, where she works, who she talks to, everything. What are you planning to do with this information?" "Nothing permanent. I just want to scare her a little. Make her understand that she can't ruin people's lives and walk away unscathed." The man agreed. Within days, Soo-yeon had everything she needed. At 36 weeks, Zawadi woke up to contractions that wouldn't stop. This time, the babies were coming, and there was no preventing it. McKenna drove her to the hospital at 3 a.m, holding her hand while Zawadi screamed through contractions. "Emergency contact?" the nurse asked, holding a clipboard. Zawadi gave them Dongwoo's information through tears. "But don't call him yet. Only if something goes really wrong. Please." The nurse made a note. "We'll respect your wishes." But as the labor progressed and complications mounted, the medical team made the call anyway. Standard procedure for high-risk deliveries. Someone needed to be contacted. Someone needed to know. At 3 a.m., Dongwoo's phone rang with the call that would change everything. "Mr. Park, this is Detroit Memorial Hospital. Your wife is in labor." And just like that, 8 months of separate hell ended. The truth was about to come out, whether either of them was ready for it or not. The call came from Detroit Memorial, not Columbus. In her panic and pain, Zawadi had told Makina to take her to Detroit, to the hospital closest to where Dongwoo lived. Some part of her, even after everything, still wanted him there. Still needed him. She just hadn't been brave enough to call him herself. After hanging up on his brother that night at the hospital, Dongwoo turned his phone back on to find it exploding with messages. Most were from Sung Min, filled with threats and demands that he return home immediately. But there was one from Soo Yeon that made his blood run cold. Congratulations on the twins. I'm sure they're beautiful. It would be a shame if anything happened to them or their mother while she's vulnerable in the hospital. The world is so dangerous for young families. It wasn't an explicit threat, but in their world it didn't need to be. Soo Yeon was telling him she knew where Zawadi was, and that knowledge meant danger. Dongwoo made 3 phone calls, first to his head of security, demanding round-the-clock protection for Zawadi's hospital room. Second, to Jiwoo, asking her to come stay with Zawadi so she wouldn't be alone. Third, to a contact in law enforcement, who owed him a favor, requesting that Soo Yeon be monitored for any suspicious activity. When he returned to Zawadi's room, she was asleep, exhausted from delivery and blood loss. The twins were in the nursery being checked over by specialists. Dongwoo stood in the doorway and watched her breathe, processing everything that had happened in the past 6 hours. He was a father. The words didn't feel real yet. 2 tiny humans existed now who were half him, half her. All miracle. Children he'd been told he could never have, born from a woman who'd left him because he'd failed her in every way that mattered. A nurse approached quietly. "Mr. Park, your daughter needs to go into the NICU for observation. Her oxygen levels are slightly low, probably from being early. Nothing to panic about, but we want to monitor her closely." Fear gripped his chest. Is she going to be okay? Most likely, yes, but early babies sometimes need extra support. The nurse's smile was kind. "Your son is doing great, though. Strong lungs, good weight, fighting the world already." Dongwoo followed her to the nursery and looked at his children through the glass. Jiwon was indeed fighting, squirming in his bassinet and making angry faces at the nurses trying to swaddle him. But Mi-sun was so small and still, hooked up to monitors that beeped softly. "Can I hold her before you take her?" he asked. They led him into the nursery, helped him wash his hands and put on a gown. A nurse placed Mi-sun in his arms carefully, and Dongwoo looked down at his daughter's tiny face. She had Zawadi's nose and his eyes, delicate features that looked too fragile for this harsh world. "Stay strong, little one," he whispered in Korean. "You have to stay strong because your father doesn't know how to do this without you. You and your brother are the only good things I've ever helped create." Mi-sun's tiny hand wrapped around his finger, her grip surprisingly firm. In that moment, Dongwoo fell completely, irrevocably in love. Whatever happened with Zawadi, whatever complications arose from their broken marriage, these children were his purpose now. His reason for becoming better than he'd been. They took Mi-sun to the NICU, and Dongwoo returned to Zawadi's room. She was awake now, talking quietly with Jiwoo, who'd arrived while he was with the babies. "Your sister brought me food," Zawadi said, not quite meeting his eyes. Real food, not hospital garbage. "Someone has to take care of you since you clearly won't take care of yourself," Jiwoo said with affection. "Dongwoo told me you worked 2 jobs while pregnant with twins. Are you insane?" "I needed to eat." "You could have called, asked for help. Pride isn't worth dying over." It wasn't pride. Zawadi finally looked at Dongwoo. "I thought he'd think I was lying, that I'd cheated and was trying to trap him with babies that weren't his. I couldn't bear him looking at me like that." "But they are his," Jiwoo said firmly. "You only have to look at Jiwon to see that. He has the Park family scowl already. A small smile crossed Zawadi's face. He does, doesn't he? Even when he was crowning, I could see his angry little face and thought, that's definitely Dongwoo's son. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 months of separation and pain hanging heavy in the room. I need to tell you something, Dongwoo said. Soo-yeon sent me a message. She knows you're here, and she made a veiled threat about something happening to you and the babies. Zawadi's face went pale. She found me? Someone did. I've arranged security for your room, and I'm moving you somewhere safe as soon as the doctors clear you for discharge. No arguments. I don't have money for... This isn't about money. This is about keeping our children safe from people who want to hurt me by hurting you. His voice was hard, the voice of the man who'd survived in a brutal world for decades. You can hate me, refuse to speak to me, demand I stay out of your life after this. But right now, while you're vulnerable, you will accept my protection. She wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes. But she was too tired, too scared, too aware that he was right. Okay, she whispered. But only until I'm strong enough to leave. Then I'm taking my babies, and going somewhere you'll never find us. The words hurt, but he'd earned them. Fair enough. Over the next 3 days in the hospital, they existed in a strange limbo. Dongwoo stayed close, helping with the babies when Zawadi was too exhausted, bringing her food from restaurants she'd loved when they were married, running interference with medical staff and hospital administration. They were careful around each other, painfully polite, neither willing to address the elephant in the room. What happened now? Mi-sun stabilized quickly and was released from the NICU after 48 hours. Zawadi held her daughter for the first time without tubes and wires and cried so hard the nurses worried something was wrong. She's perfect, Zawadi kept saying. Both of them are so perfect. They get it from you, Dongwoo said quietly. She looked at him with red, swollen eyes. Don't do that. Don't say sweet things, and make this harder than it already is. I'm just stating facts. But the tenderness in his voice was unmistakable, and it broke something loose in Zawadi's chest. She'd spent 8 months building walls, convincing herself she could hate him, that what they'd had wasn't worth the pain. But seeing him with their children, watching him cradle Mi-sun with such gentle reverence and laugh at Ji-won's antics, reminded her of everything she'd loved about him. This was the man who'd pursued her after she'd spilled wine on him, the man who'd learned to make injera from scratch because he knew it made her feel at home, the man who'd stood up to his entire family for her, who'd married her in secret because he couldn't wait another day to call her his wife. Somewhere between the infertility diagnosis and Soo-yeon's manipulation, they'd lost that version of themselves. But were those people still in there somewhere? Could they find their way back? The day they were discharged, Dongwoo had everything arranged. A private car, a house in Indianapolis far from both Detroit and Columbus, a full security team, and a live-in nurse to help Zawadi with the twins while she recovered. Indianapolis? She asked, as they drove away from the hospital, both babies sleeping in car seats between them. Neutral ground, far enough from my family to have peace, close enough that I can handle business when needed. He glanced at her. The house is under your name only, bought outright, no mortgage. If you decide to leave when you're recovered, it's yours to keep or sell. I won't fight you on it. Why would you do that? Because you and our children deserve stability, security, a place that's yours no matter what happens between us. Zawadi didn't know what to say to that. The house was beautiful, a 4-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, with a big yard and good schools nearby. The kind of place she'd dreamed about when she first came to America, but never thought she could afford. This must have cost a fortune, she said, walking through rooms filled with new furniture and baby supplies. I have a fortune. I might as well spend it on something that matters. Over the following weeks, they fell into a routine. Dongwoo stayed in the house's guest room, giving Zawadi the master suite with the twins' nursery connected. He helped with night feedings and diaper changes, learning how to be a father through trial and error, and Zawadi's increasingly exasperated instruction. "You're holding him wrong," she said one night at 2 a.m. when Jiwon wouldn't stop crying. "There's a wrong way to hold a baby? Apparently you found it. Give him here." They worked together in exhausted silence, trading babies and bottles and burp cloths. It was domestic and intimate in ways that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with survival. They were two people in the trenches of new parenthood, and despite 8 months of separation, they still moved around each other with the easy familiarity of long partnership. "Remember when you said you wanted 3 kids?" Dongwoo asked one morning while she nursed Misun and he fed Jiwon a bottle. I was clearly insane. One pregnancy with twins was enough to cure me of that fantasy. "You're doing great, though. Better than great. You're a natural. I'm a disaster who hasn't showered in 3 days and can't remember the last time I ate a meal sitting down." A beautiful disaster, then. She looked up and caught him staring at her with such open affection that it stole her breath. "Stop looking at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you still love me. Like the past 8 months didn't happen. Like we're still those people who got married in secret and believed love could conquer everything. What if I do still love you? What if I never stopped? Then you're setting yourself up for more heartbreak, because I don't know if I can trust you again, Dongwoo. I don't know if I can survive another round of your family's hatred and your emotional withdrawal and watching you let other women get too close." Suyeon never got close. I pushed her away immediately. But you created the situation where she thought she had a chance. You pulled away from me emotionally and gave her space to move in. That's betrayal even without physical cheating. He had no defense for that because it was true. He'd failed her, failed their marriage, and now he was paying the price. But he wasn't giving up. Every day, he tried to prove he'd changed. He cooked her favorite meals. He took the twins for hours so she could sleep. He listened when she talked about her fears and her exhaustion without trying to fix everything. He just showed up, consistently, reliably, the way he should have done when they were married. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Zawadi started to soften toward him. One night, she came downstairs to find him asleep on the couch, Jiwon sleeping on his chest. Both of them were snoring softly, Jiwon's tiny fist clutching Dongwoo's shirt. The sight made her heart ache with such fierce love and longing that she had to sit down. This was what she'd wanted, what they'd lost. A family, a partner who showed up, a man who loved their children with the same intensity he'd once loved her. "You're staring," Dongwoo mumbled without opening his eyes. "You're snoring." "Our son is snoring. I'm breathing heavily." She laughed, the sound surprising both of them. When was the last time she'd laughed? Before the divorce, certainly. Before everything fell apart. Dongwoo opened his eyes and looked at her. Really looked at her. "I miss that sound." "What sound?" "Your laugh. Your real laugh. Not the polite one you use with nurses and doctors. The one that means you're actually happy." "I'm not sure I remember how to be actually happy." "Then let me remind you." He sat up carefully, cradling Jiwon. "Let me spend every day for the rest of our lives making you laugh like that again. Dongwoo, I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I destroyed what we had through my own weakness and stupidity. But those babies deserve parents who at least try to make it work. And I'm asking you, begging you, to let me try." Zawadi looked at her son sleeping peacefully in his father's arms, at the man who'd given her more pain and more joy than anyone else in her life. Could they really fix this? Could trust be rebuilt from broken pieces? "I don't know," she said honestly. "I want to believe we can. But wanting something doesn't make it possible. Then let's find out together. No more running, no more shutting down, no more letting other people poison what we have. Just us, trying. Before she could answer, Misun started crying from upstairs, her hungry wail echoing through the house. The moment broke, and Zawadi went to tend to their daughter. But something had shifted between them. A possibility had opened up, fragile and uncertain, but real. Danger, however, was coming faster than either of them knew. 6 weeks after the twins were born, Zawadi was finally starting to feel like a human again. The exhaustion was still crushing, but at least she could shower daily and remember to eat. Dongwoo had proven himself reliable, showing up every single day to help with the babies, without complaint or expectation of reward. They'd settled into something that almost resembled friendship. They talked about the twins constantly, made plans for their future, even laughed together occasionally. But they hadn't addressed the bigger questions. Were they getting back together? Would they try to repair their marriage? Or were they just co-parenting successfully? One afternoon, while both babies napped, Zawadi found Dongwoo in the kitchen making lunch. He'd learned to cook more in the past 6 weeks, expanding beyond the few Korean dishes he'd mastered during their marriage. "Can we talk?" she asked, sitting at the kitchen island. He looked up, immediately wary. That tone usually means something bad. "Not bad, just honest." She took a breath. "I need to know what this is, what we are, because the twins are going to grow up seeing how we interact, and I don't want them confused about whether their parents are together or not." "What do you want us to be?" I asked first. "Zawadi, I want to be your husband again. I want to fix our marriage and build the life we planned before I ruined everything. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want more than shared custody and polite co-parenting." He set down the knife he'd been using. "But I know I have to earn that. Know that wanting it doesn't mean I deserve it. You hurt me so badly, Dongwoo. You let your family treat me like garbage. Let Soo-yeon manipulate both of us, and then emotionally abandoned me when you got the infertility news. You made me feel like I was the problem, like loving you was a mistake. It was never a mistake. You loving me was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it because I was too proud and too broken to accept help." She twisted her hands together. "I'm scared. Scared that if we try again, it'll just be the same patterns. Your family will still hate me. The dangers of your world will still threaten our children. And when things get hard, you'll pull away again, instead of letting me in." "I'm getting out." She looked up sharply. "What?" "Out of the family business, out of the organization. I've been working with federal authorities for the past month, giving them information in exchange for immunity. It's going to take time and it's going to be dangerous. But I'm done. I want a clean life for our children. For us." Zawadi's eyes filled with tears. This was what she'd wanted all along, for him to choose their family over the life he'd been born into. But she'd never asked, because she'd known how much it would cost him. "Your family will see that as the ultimate betrayal. They betrayed me first, by trying to destroy us, by treating you like you were worthless when you're everything." He moved around the island to stand in front of her. "I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm just telling you that I'm already changing, already becoming the man you needed me to be. Whether or not you give me another chance, I'm doing this for our kids, so they can grow up safe and proud of their father instead of afraid and ashamed." She reached up and touched his face gently. "That's the most brave thing you've ever said to me. Or the most terrifying." They were leaning closer, the pull between them magnetic and inevitable, when Dongwoo's phone rang. He checked it, and his expression went dark. "Jiwoo, give me 1 second," he answered. "What's wrong?" His sister's voice was frantic enough that Zawadi could hear it from where she sat. Sung-min knows about the immunity deal, about you talking to the feds. He's calling an emergency family meeting, and father is furious. They're planning something, big brother. I think they're going to try to hurt you through Zawadi and the babies. Dongwoo was already moving, grabbing his keys and his gun. Get to Indianapolis, now. Bring anyone you trust. I'm calling extra security. He hung up and turned to Zawadi, his face grim. We need to leave. The house isn't safe anymore. What's happening? My family knows I'm turning on them, which means they're going to try to stop me, and the easiest way to do that is to threaten what I care about most. He was already packing a bag, throwing in essentials. I have a safe house 2 hours from here. We'll go there until I can figure out how to protect you permanently. Fear clawed at Zawadi's throat. This was her nightmare, being targeted because of Dongwoo's world, her children being in danger because their father had enemies. But she'd known this was a possibility, had known from the day she married him that his life came with risks. Let me pack the baby's things, she said, forcing herself to stay calm. How long do we have? Maybe an hour before they figure out where we are. Maybe less. They moved with military efficiency, packing bags and car seats and formula. Zawadi grabbed her important documents while Dongwoo made calls to his security team. Within 20 minutes, they were in his car with both babies and speeding away from Indianapolis. Behind them, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the house. Men in suits got out, armed and looking for blood. But the house was empty. Dongwoo had moved fast enough to keep his family safe, for now. The safe house was actually a compound in rural Indiana, hidden in woods and surrounded by fencing and security systems that looked military-grade. Dongwoo pulled through the gates, and the tension in his shoulders finally eased slightly. We'll be safe here, he said. No one knows about this place except Ji-woo and 2 trusted men who help me maintain it. Zawadi looked around at the fortress that was apparently their new home. How long have you had this? 3 years. I bought it after we got married, thinking I might need somewhere to hide you if things went really wrong. Guess I was right. They unloaded the car and got the babies settled. Ji-woo arrived an hour later with supplies and information. It's bad, she said without preamble. Father has declared you an enemy of the family. Sung-min is actively hunting you, and Soo-yeon is working with them now, giving them information about your movements and contacts. Of course she is, Dongwoo said bitterly, humiliated her. Now she wants revenge. There's more. Ji-woo glanced at Zawadi. She's been in contact with a man named Dmitry Volkov. He's the Russian crime lord you took territory from 3 years ago. Apparently, he's been waiting for a chance to strike back, and Soo-yeon just handed him everything he needed to hurt you where it counts. The name Dmitry Volkov made Dongwoo go pale. He should be in prison. I made sure of that. He got out 6 months ago on a technicality, and now he knows about Zawadi and the twins. Zawadi felt like she was going to be sick. How many people want to hurt us? Too many, Dongwoo admitted. My family for betraying them. Soo-yeon for rejecting her. Dmitry for stealing from him. It's a perfect storm of enemies all converging at once. Then we fight, Ji-woo said fiercely. We gather everyone loyal to you. We work with the feds to take down the organization from the inside, and we eliminate the threats one by one. You're not alone in this, big brother. Over the next week, the safe house became a war room. Dongwoo coordinated with federal agents, giving them names and locations and evidence. Ji-woo worked her contacts within the family to figure out who could be trusted, and Zawadi took care of the twins, while trying not to think about the fact that trained killers wanted her dead. Late one night, she found Dongwoo outside on the porch, staring into the darkness with exhaustion written all over his face. You should sleep, she said, joining him. Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see 1,000 ways this goes wrong. Ways they get to you or the babies. Ways I fail to protect you again. You haven't failed. We're safe right now because of you. Safe for now isn't good enough. You deserve to live without fear, to raise our children in peace. And instead, you're trapped in a compound, in the middle of nowhere, because I spent my whole life making enemies. Zawadi was quiet for a moment, then reached out and took his hand. I knew who you were when I married you, knew the risks, and I chose you anyway, because I loved you more than I feared the danger. That hasn't changed, Dongwoo. I'm still choosing you, still choosing us. He turned to look at her, hope and disbelief warring on his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try again, want to fix what we broke, but this time we do it together. No more shutting each other out, no more letting other people poison us, no more running when things get hard. We face everything as a team, or not at all. Zawadi, she kissed him before he could finish, pouring 8 months of pain and longing and desperate love into that kiss. He responded immediately, pulling her close and kissing her back like she was air and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against his. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. I tried so hard to hate you, to move on, to convince myself I was better off alone. But I never stopped. Neither did I. Not for one single day. They stayed like that, holding each other in the darkness, until one of the babies started crying inside. Reality intruded, as it always did with newborns. But something fundamental had shifted between them. They'd found their way back to each other, and this time they weren't letting go. The attack came 3 days later. Zawadi was feeding Misun when alarms started blaring throughout the compound. Dongwoo burst into the nursery, his face grim. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Jiwoo. What's happening? Dimitri found us. He's here with at least 12 men. He kissed her hard and fast. I love you. Protect our babies. Then he was gone, and Zawadi was alone with 2 newborns and the sound of gunfire starting outside. The gunfire was distant at first, echoing from the perimeter of the compound. Zawadi locked herself in the master bedroom's walk-in closet with both babies, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break her ribs. This was her worst nightmare manifested, violence reaching them despite all of Dongwoo's precautions. Jiwon started crying, sensing her fear. She held him close and whispered soothing words in Kinyarwanda, the language of her childhood, while Misun slept peacefully in her bassinet. The contrast was surreal. One baby screaming while the world outside dissolved into chaos, the other sleeping through potential disaster like nothing was wrong. The gunfire intensified, closer now. Zawadi heard shouting in multiple languages, Russian and Korean mixing with English. She clutched her phone, waiting for word from Dongwoo, terrified that every second of silence meant something had happened to him. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes, her phone buzzed. Stay hidden. Dimitri breached the main house, but we've contained him in the East Wing. Federal agents are 10 minutes out. Just hold on a little longer. She texted back with shaking fingers. We're okay. Be careful. I love you. The response was immediate. I love you too. You and our babies are my whole world. Not losing you again. The shooting stopped suddenly, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow worse. Zawadi strained to hear anything that might tell her what was happening. Footsteps in the hallway, voices speaking Russian. She pressed herself further into the corner of the closet, trying to make herself and the babies invisible. The bedroom door exploded inward. Zawadi stopped breathing. Heavy footsteps crossed the room, drawers being opened, furniture moved. Someone was searching methodically. She covered Jiwon's mouth gently, praying he wouldn't make a sound. The closet door handle turned. Locked. Zawadi had never been more grateful for Dongwoo's paranoia about security. "She's in there," a man's voice said in accented English. "Break it down." Before they could, gunfire erupted again, this time right in the bedroom. Zawadi heard, bodies hitting the floor, heard Dongwoo's voice shouting commands. Then silence. "Zawadi? It's me. You can come out." She unlocked the closet door on trembling legs and found Dongwoo standing in the bedroom, blood splattered across his clothes and face. Behind him, 2 men lay dead on the floor. "Don't look at them," he said quickly, positioning himself to block her view. "Federal agents just arrived. Dimitri's in custody. It's over." "Is anyone hurt?" "One of my men took a bullet to the shoulder, but he'll live. Jiwoo is fine, just shaken. And our family is safe. That's all that matters." Zawadi set Jiwon in his bassinet and threw her arms around Dongwoo, not caring about the blood, just needing to feel him alive and whole. He held her tight, his body shaking with adrenaline and leftover fear. "I'm so sorry," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry my life brought this to your doorstep." "Our life. Our doorstep." She pulled back to look at him. "I meant what I said. We're in this together now, which means your enemies are my enemies, and we face them as a team. You're insane. Probably. But I'm your kind of insane." Federal agents swarmed the compound for the next several hours, collecting evidence and taking statements. Dimitri was loaded into an armored vehicle, and this time, there would be no technicalities getting him out. The evidence Dongwoo had been collecting, combined with the attempted murder charge from today's attack, would put him away for life. One threat eliminated. But the bigger threat remained. Dongwoo's own family. 2 days later, cleaned up and rested, Dongwoo arranged a meeting with his father and brother. Neutral ground, with federal agents nearby for security. He didn't tell them about the agents. That would come as a surprise. Zawadi wanted to come with him, but he refused. "This could get violent. I'm not risking you or the babies." "Then it definitely needs me there. You need someone to remind you that reacting with violence is exactly what they expect. Someone to keep you human, instead of letting you become what they made you." He studied her for a long moment. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the time I married a Korean mobster, and thought that was a reasonable life choice." They met at a restaurant Jun-sik owned, closed to the public for this private conversation. Dongwoo's father sat at the head of a long table with Sung-min at his right hand, and Soo-yeon standing behind them like a loyal dog. "You brought your wife," Jun-sik said with distaste, when Zawadi entered, holding Misun while Dongwoo carried Jiwon. "This is family business." "She is family. More family than anyone at this table." Dongwoo sat across from his father with Zawadi beside him. "And these are your grandchildren, though you've never once asked to meet them." Haiwan, his mother, had come too. She looked at the babies with hunger in her eyes, a grandmother's longing warring with her prejudice and pride. "They're not legitimate," she said weakly. "You married without permission, divorced like it meant nothing." "We're remarrying," Dongwoo interrupted. "Properly this time, with witnesses and legal documentation. And you're all invited, though I don't expect you to come. I just wanted you to know before you hear it from someone else." Sung-min laughed bitterly. "You're remarrying the woman who left you? The one you couldn't even keep happy for a year? The one I failed through my own weakness. The one who gave me children I was told I couldn't have. The one who stayed by my side during an attack on our home instead of running away screaming. Yes, that woman. I'm remarrying her and spending the rest of my life proving I deserve her." "This is pathetic," Soo-yeon spat. "She's made you soft and stupid. You're throwing away everything for—" "Careful," Zawadi said quietly, her voice carrying steel beneath the gentleness. "That's my husband, and the father of my children you're talking about. Whatever games you played before, whatever lies you told, they're finished. You have no power over us anymore." Soo-yeon's face twisted with rage. "You think you won? You think just because he came crawling back to you that—" "I wasn't finished talking." Zawadi's tone could have cut glass. "You tried to destroy our marriage because you wanted something that was never yours. You betrayed Dongwoo's trust, manipulated me when I thought you were my friend, and recently helped arrange an attack that could have killed our children. But I'm not going to let you keep living rent-free in my head or our relationship. You're nothing. Less than nothing. And this is the last time we'll acknowledge your existence." The room was silent. Even Jun-sik looked impressed, though he tried to hide it. Dongwoo stood, still holding Ji-won. "I came here to tell you 3 things. First, I'm marrying Zawadi again, and you will treat her with respect, or you'll never see me or your grandchildren. Second, I've given federal authorities everything they need to dismantle the illegal parts of our organization. The legitimate businesses will continue, but the trafficking, the money laundering, the violence, all of it ends now. And third, if any of you ever threaten my family again, I will destroy you. Not as your son or brother, but as an enemy who knows exactly where all the bodies are buried." Jun-sik's expression turned murderous. "You betrayed your own family? Gave the authorities information? You betrayed me first, when you tried to destroy my marriage, threatened my wife, and put my children in danger. I'm just evening the score. You've signed your own death warrant. Maybe. But I'm taking you all down with me if I go. Mutually assured destruction. So I suggest we all walk away and build separate lives where we leave each other alone." Sung-min stood, his hand moving toward his jacket, where he probably had a weapon. Instantly, federal agents emerged from where they'd been waiting in the kitchen and back. Rooms, guns drawn. "This meeting is over," Dongwoo said calmly. "Consider this your only warning. Come near my family again, and there won't be a second meeting. There will only be arrests and prison time for everyone at this table who's been involved in criminal activities, which, according to my documentation, is all of you, except Mother." He turned to his mother, his expression softening slightly. "You have a choice. You can side with them and lose your son and grandchildren forever, or you can accept that I'm building a new life with the woman I love and be part of it. But you need to decide now." Hae-won looked at the babies, at Zawadi's fierce protective expression, at her son who'd grown stronger than she'd known. "I choose my grandchildren," she said quietly. "And if that means accepting their mother, then I'll learn." It wasn't a declaration of love or acceptance, but it was a start. They left the restaurant under federal protection, leaving Dongwoo's father and brother and Soo-yeon to face the consequences of their choices. Later that week, arrests were made. Jun-sik, Sung-min, and Soo-yeon were all charged with various crimes that would put them away for decades. The Park family's criminal empire crumbled. The legitimate businesses were reorganized under new management, and Dongwoo walked away from all of it, with his freedom intact thanks to his cooperation with authorities. "How does it feel?" Zawadi asked one evening as they watched the news coverage of the arrests. "Seeing your family go to prison because of information you provided." "Like I can finally breathe," he admitted. "Like I'm free for the first time in my life. Is that terrible?" "It's honest. And honesty is what we're building this second chance on." They remarried a month later in a simple ceremony in Boston, where they'd decided to relocate for a fresh start. Haewon came and held Mi-sun during the ceremony, tears streaming down her face as she watched her son marry the woman who'd given him everything worth having. Ji-woo was Zawadi's maid of honor. Makina flew in from Ohio with her kids. A few of Dongwoo's loyal men who'd left the organization with him attended. It was small and imperfect, and absolutely perfect. "I promise to choose you every single day," Dongwoo said during his vows, "to never let anyone or anything come between us again, to be worthy of the second chance you've given me. I promise to be strong enough to tell you when I need help," Zawadi said, "to trust you with my fears instead of running from them, to build a life with you that honors both our cultures and creates something entirely new for our children." They kissed as husband and wife for the second time, and this time it felt like a beginning instead of a desperate gamble. They bought a house in a diverse Boston neighborhood with good schools and parks. Dongwoo started a legitimate import business, using his connections for legal trade. Zawadi finished her law degree and began working for an immigration nonprofit, helping refugees like she'd once been. Their life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, still arguments, still moments when old wounds ached. But they faced everything together now, as the team they'd promised to be. Ji-won grew into a serious, protective little boy who followed his mother everywhere. Mi-sun became the bold one, fearless and laughing, always getting into mischief. They were perfect and exhausting, and the best thing either parent had ever done. One night, 2 years after their second wedding, Zawadi found Dongwoo in the twins' room, watching them sleep. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sliding her arms around him from behind. "How close we came to losing this. How many wrong choices could have meant these two perfect humans never existed. How grateful I am that you were brave enough to give me another chance. We were brave enough to give us another chance." She rested her cheek against his back. "Both of us." He turned in her arms and kissed her gently. "I love you, Zawadi Park, more than I did when we first married, if that's even possible." It's possible. Love grows when you water it with honesty and effort, instead of drowning it in pride and fear. When did you become so wise? I told you. The day I married a reformed Korean mobster and decided that was somehow a good life choice. They laughed quietly, not wanting to wake the twins, and stood together watching their children breathe. Outside, Boston went about its business, completely unaware that in this small room, a family that shouldn't exist had become the most real thing in the world. Later that night, tangled in their bed after the twins finally settled, Zawadi brought up something that had been on her mind. "I want to try for another baby," she said into the darkness. Dongwoo went still. "Really? After how hard the twin pregnancy was? Really? I want our kids to have siblings, want to fill this house with noise and chaos and love. And I want to do it right this time, with you by my side from the first day, instead of suffering alone." He pulled her closer. "Then let's make another miracle. As many miracles as you want." They made love slowly, tenderly, full of promises and hope, and the absolute certainty that whatever came next, they'd face it together. 3 months later, Zawadi took a pregnancy test, and it came back positive. This time, when she told Dongwoo, he cried tears of joy instead of fear. This time, they went to every doctor's appointment together, painted the nursery together, dreamed about their growing family together. Their third child, a daughter they named Hope, was born healthy and loud, announcing her arrival like she owned the world. And maybe she did. Maybe all their children did. Because Dongwoo and Zawadi had learned the hardest lesson, that love isn't about perfection or easy choices. It's about showing up, doing the work, and choosing each other even when everything says you shouldn't. Their story started with wine spilled on an expensive suit. It crashed and burned through betrayal and lies, and 8 months of separate hell. But it ended with a house full of laughter, children who looked like proof that miracles happen, and 2 people who'd found their way back to each other against impossible odds. Some fires burn out. Some destroy everything they touch. But the right fire, tended carefully and fed with honesty and effort, burns forever. Boston in autumn was beautiful, leaves turning gold and red, the air crisp with the promise of winter, their neighborhood full of families walking to parks and schools. Zawadi pushed the double stroller with Ji-won and Mi-sun, while Dong-woo carried baby Hope in a carrier against his chest. They looked like any other young family enjoying the season. No one would guess that just 3 years ago, they'd been targets of multiple criminal organizations, that they'd survived attacks and betrayals and a divorce that should have ended them permanently. "Ice cream," Ji-won announced, pointing at their favorite shop. "It's too cold for ice cream," Zawadi protested. "It's never too cold for ice cream," Dong-woo countered, already steering toward the shop. "Besides, we're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" 3 years since we remarried. 3 years of being happy. That deserves ice cream." They sat at a corner table while the twins devoured chocolate cones, and Hope slept peacefully. Zawadi watched her husband help Mi-sun with her melting ice cream and felt overwhelming contentment. "What?" Dong-woo asked, catching her staring. "Nothing. Just thinking about how far we've come. From throwing wine on my suit to throwing up from morning sickness. Quite a journey." She kicked him lightly under the table. "You're never letting that go, are you?" "Never. Best accident of my life." But their peace was about to be tested one final time. The letter arrived 3 days later, forwarded from their old Indianapolis address. Official looking, legal. Zawadi opened it while Dong-woo was at work and felt her blood run cold. Sung-min had been released from prison on appeal. Some technicality with the evidence, some lawyer who'd found a loophole. And according to the letter, which was from a legal firm representing him, he was suing for grandparents' rights to see the twins, not even his children, his brother's children. But apparently, the law had provisions for extended family in certain circumstances, and Sung-min was exploiting them. When Dong-woo came home and read the letter, his expression went dark with old rage. He's doing this to hurt us, to force his way back into our lives. Can he win? Legally. I don't know. But we're not fighting this alone. He pulled out his phone. Time to call in favors. The case became a spectacle. Sung-min's lawyers painted Zawadi as an unfit mother who'd kept the children from their family. They brought up her refugee status, implied she was using the twins as meal tickets, and generally tried to destroy her character. Dong-woo's legal team hit back hard. They presented evidence of Sung-min's criminal record, his history of trying to harm Zawadi and the children, his complete lack of interest in being an uncle until it became a way to hurt his brother. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Zawadi had to testify, had to sit in a courtroom, while lawyers tore apart her choices and her character. It was brutal and exhausting, and triggered every insecurity she'd worked so hard to overcome. But she wasn't alone this time. Dong-woo sat beside her every day, holding her hand, reminding her who she was. Ji-woo testified on their behalf. Makina flew in to speak about how hard Zawadi had worked during her pregnancy. Even Hai-won, Dong-woo's mother, testified that Zawadi was an excellent mother and that Sung-min had no place in those children's lives. The day of the verdict, the courtroom was packed. Judge Martinez, a stern woman in her 60s, looked over her reading glasses at both parties. "I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony. I've considered the best interests of the children, which is always the primary concern in these cases, and I've come to a decision." Zawadi gripped Dong-woo's hand so hard her fingers went numb. "Mr. Park's request for grandparents' rights is denied. The evidence clearly shows he has no genuine relationship with these children, and that his motives are retaliatory, rather than based in love or concern for their welfare. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order, preventing Mr. Park from contacting the family or coming within 500 feet of them. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Case dismissed. The relief was so intense that Zawadi burst into tears right there in the courtroom. Dongwoo held her while she shook, murmuring reassurances in Korean and English. Outside, Sung-min was waiting with his lawyer, his expression twisted with hatred. "This isn't over," he said as they passed. "You can't hide forever?" Dongwoo stopped and turned to face his brother fully for the first time in 3 years. "You're right. It's not over. It's already finished. You lost, Sung-min. You've been losing since the day you decided that power and control mattered more than family and love. I used to feel sorry for you. Now, I just feel nothing. You betrayed your blood for that woman, and her, finish that sentence, and restraining order or not, I'll put you in the hospital." Dongwoo's voice was deadly calm. "Those are my children, my wife, my family, and you will never touch them, never hurt them, never come near them again. Because unlike you, I protect what matters to me." He took Zawadi's hand and walked away, leaving Sung-min alone with his bitterness. That night, after the twins were asleep and hope was fed and settled, Dongwoo and Zawadi collapsed on their couch. "I'm so tired," she said. "Tired of fighting, tired of proving myself, tired of dealing with your family's drama. I know. I'm sorry you have to keep going through this because of me. Stop apologizing. I chose this life, remember? I chose you and everything that comes with you." She snuggled closer to him. "But I'm also choosing to believe that this was the last big battle. That from here on out, it's just normal life stuff. Kids' school plays and science projects, and arguing about whose turn it is to change diapers. I would love nothing more than boring, normal life stuff with you." They sat in comfortable silence until Zawadi spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "Do you ever regret it? Leaving the family business? Burning all those bridges? Starting over?" "Never. Not even once." He kissed her temple. "That life was killing me slowly, making me into someone I hated. You saved me from that, Zawadi. You and our children showed me what actually matters. We saved each other. That's what partnership is." Over the next year, life did settle into something resembling normal. The twins started preschool. Hope grew from a newborn into a giggly baby who adored her older siblings. Zawadi's immigration law practice grew, and she became known for taking on difficult cases and winning them. Dongwoo's business expanded, opening offices in 3 cities. He hired refugees and immigrants, giving them opportunities they wouldn't get elsewhere. It was his way of honoring Zawadi's journey and giving back to communities that had been ignored. Haiwan became a regular presence in their lives, arriving every Sunday for dinner and spoiling the grandchildren relentlessly. She and Zawadi would never be best friends, but they'd found mutual respect and genuine affection. "You've made my son happy," Haiwan said one evening while they cleaned up after dinner. "Happier than I've ever seen him. I was wrong about you. I let prejudice and pride blind me to what was obvious, that you're the best thing that ever happened to him. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. Will you forgive an old woman her foolishness?" Zawadi hugged her mother-in-law carefully. "Family forgives. That's what you taught your children, even if they learned it the hard way." 2 years after the court case, Zawadi got an unexpected call. Soo-yeon, still in prison, wanted to speak with her. Zawadi's first instinct was to refuse, but something made her agree to a supervised visit. Soo-yeon looked terrible. Prison had aged her, hardened her, taken away the polished beauty she'd once wielded like a weapon. Why did you come? Soo-yeon asked, when they sat across from each other with a guard nearby. I don't know. Curiosity, maybe. Or a need for closure. I hated you, Soo-yeon said bluntly. Hated that he chose you over me, that you had everything I wanted. I spent years plotting how to destroy you. I know. You almost succeeded. But you survived, thrived even. I saw the article about your law practice, about his business. You two built something real while I rotted in here. Soo-yeon's expression was bitter. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I realize now what I lost. Not Dong-woo because he was never mine to lose, but the chance to be a good person, to build something real instead of tearing down what others had. Is there a question in there somewhere? Just this. How do you do it? How do you love someone so completely without losing yourself? Zawadi thought about all they'd been through, all the times she'd almost given up, all the moments when staying was harder than leaving. You don't love without losing yourself. You love and find a new, better version of yourself in the process. The version that's strong enough to be vulnerable, brave enough to trust, and secure enough to let someone else be strong when you're weak. She stood to leave. I hope you find that someday, Soo-yeon. I genuinely do. Because living with bitterness is its own kind of prison. She left feeling lighter than she'd expected. Forgiveness wasn't about Soo-yeon deserving it. It was about Zawadi refusing to carry that weight anymore. That night, she told Dong-woo about the visit. He listened without interrupting, then pulled her into his arms. You're an incredible person, you know that? I'm just someone who got tired of being angry. No, you're someone who chooses grace when you could choose revenge, who builds up instead of tearing down, who makes everyone around you want to be better. He kissed her softly. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm grateful every single day. You deserved me because you chose to become worthy. That's the secret, Dong-woo. Not being perfect, but being willing to grow. 5 years after their remarriage, on their anniversary, Dong-woo surprised Zawadi with a renewal ceremony. He'd planned everything in secret with Ji-woo's help. A beautiful venue, their closest friends, even flying in Zawadi's aunt from Rwanda. Why? Zawadi asked when she realized what he'd done. We're already married. Twice. Because I wanted to celebrate us. Celebrate surviving things that should have broken us. Celebrate building a life that's even better than what we dreamed of. He took her hands. And because I wanted to make new vows. Ones based on who we've become instead of who we were. Standing in front of their family and friends, with their 3 children watching, they spoke from the heart. I promise to never stop growing with you, Dong-woo said. To face every challenge as a team. To be worthy of the faith you've placed in me every single day. And to love you more tomorrow than I do today, which seems impossible, but somehow keeps happening. I promise to trust you with my fears, Zawadi said, tears streaming down her face. To be strong enough to be weak, to choose us over pride, and to remind you every day that you're enough, exactly as you are, and that our love story is proof that broken things can be made more beautiful in the mending. They kissed while their children cheered, and their friends cried, and the world kept spinning, completely unaware that something sacred was happening in that moment. Later, at the reception, Ji-won approached his parents with serious 7-year-old determination. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course, son. Why does everyone keep saying you and Mom almost didn't stay together? Why would you ever not stay together? Dong-woo knelt down to his son's level. Because staying together is hard work, Ji-won. It's choosing each other every day, even when it's difficult. Your mom and I went through some really hard times, made some bad choices, and hurt each other. But we decided that working through it was worth it because we loved each other and wanted to be a family. So you stayed together because of us? Me and Misun and Hope? No. We stayed together because of each other. Because we're better people together than we ever were apart. You kids are the blessing that came from that choice. But you're not the reason. The reason is love. Real, messy, complicated, beautiful love. Jiwon considered this seriously. When I grow up, I want to love someone like you, love Mom. Then I'm doing something right as a father. The party went late into the night. McKenna danced with Jiwoo. Haewon held Hope and cried happy tears. Zawadi's aunt told embarrassing stories about child Zawadi to anyone who would listen. And Dongwoo and Zawadi slow danced in the center of it all, completely absorbed in each other. We made it, she whispered against his chest. Through everything, we actually made it. Did you doubt we would? Every single day until recently. Now I'm starting to believe we might actually get our forever. Not might. Will. He pulled back to look at her. We've survived criminal organizations, family betrayal, divorce, attempted murder, and legal battles. At this point, I'm pretty sure we're indestructible. Don't jinx it. Can't jinx something that's already proven true. They danced until the twins fell asleep on chairs, and Hope needed to be fed. They danced until their feet hurt, and the venue staff started cleaning up around them. They danced because they could, because they'd earned this joy through blood and tears, and relentless faith in each other. Years later, when their children were grown and starting families of their own, someone asked Zawadi what the secret was to a lasting marriage. There's no secret, she said. Just a choice you make every single day. To show up, to do the work, to choose each other over comfort or pride or fear. Dongwoo and I almost lost everything because we forgot that once. But we learned, we grew, and we built something that could survive anything. Not because we're special or perfect, but because we decided we were worth fighting for. Even through all the danger and drama, especially through the danger and drama, those are the moments that either break you or forge you into something stronger. We chose stronger. In the end, their story wasn't about a Korean mafia boss and a Rwandan refugee who fell in love against all odds. It was about two broken people who found each other, lost each other, and fought their way back together. About creating miracles where doctors said none could exist. About building a life from ashes and believing that love, real love, is worth every battle. Their story was proof that some things are meant to be, even when the universe tries to tear them apart. That family isn't always the one you're born into, but the one you choose and fight for and refuse to let go of. That forever isn't a promise you make once, but a choice you remake every single day. And on quiet nights, when the house was finally peaceful and all the children were asleep, Dongwoo and Zawadi would lie in bed and whisper the same words they'd said to each other through every trial and triumph. I choose you, today and tomorrow and every day after. I choose us. That choice, repeated across years and hardships and joys, was the only magic they needed. The end. Thank you so much for staying with Dongwoo and Zawadi's journey. If you loved their story, hit that subscribe button for more romance tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Drop a comment telling us which part made your heart race the most, and don't forget to like this video if you're a believer in second chance love stories.